Often we need validation for characters, that if a specific character is valid or not. So let me give you example. So let's suppose we want to make sure that a string which will be used as a file name is valid or not. So we have some invalid character list and we want to check that if it's an invalid character or not, or if it's a valid character or not. Second example could be like user from text box validation. Let's suppose one user from text box only takes digit or alphabet. Okay, so we need to do the validation that if it's a digit or if it's alphabet or not. We need this very often, and in this video I'm going to show 3 different ways that we can use to check that if a specific character is inside a valid list or not valid list. Okay, so let's jump into the coding part. So we can just click on this developer in Visual Basic. So the first method is using the like operator. I'll share this Excel file so that you have these references and you can learn more about this like operator or case statement. So basically the idea is that we have a valid list, like we are only allowing alphabets. Okay, so that is A to Z. So it could be uppercase or it could be lowercase. So the first way is that using this like operator. So how this is work, that we'll use a like keyword and we'll have a string here and another string is there. Okay, and then what we need to pass is that if this character is like this character, I'll just go to this reference so that you understand this little bit better. So let me bring that other screen. So you can see that we can have a char list, that is any single character in a char list. So if we want to use A to Z, then we can use A to Z. Z to A is not a valid order, but A to Z is a valid order. Okay, so that's why I'm using this, that okay, A to Z and capital A to Z. Okay, so this is the 2 char list that is the valid. Okay, and then we can just check that if this specific character is inside this validation list or not. So if we want to use like number, then this will be like if test char like, what would be 0 to 9, right, like this, then it's a valid one. Correct. So you understand that this is quite simple. You can just create that validation list and then you can check that okay, if it's a valid list or not. And just check out this documentation. It has other pattern, that single character, 0 or more characters, single digit, char list, and so on. Okay, anyway, this is the first way that we can check that if a specific character is inside a validation list or invalidation list using the like operator. So the next example is using this case statement. Same thing, but using the case statement. Now, case statement is basically that we'll have a criteria and then we'll have different cases, like if it's case 65 to 90, case 97 to 122. So how do I get this number? I just use like, AC, let's say A, and I can see that is 97, that is this 97. And if we just use JIT, then we'll get 122, and if we use caps, then that will be like 65 to 90. Okay, so we can use like 65 to 90 and 97 to 122. That's another way that we can check that okay, if this specific character is inside this range. So 65 to 90, that is capital A to Z, and 97 to 122, that is smaller A to Z. Okay, so that's another way using this case statement. And then third way is that string method. So basically this is one interesting method that I found recently, that is string method. So we can create a string containing all the valid characters. So like if you look at this, A to Z, and then we have A to Z in caps. Yeah, right. So we're just checking that okay, if this string is present in this validation chars or not. So basically not equals to 0 means that it's found. Okay, so we can just check that okay, if this string is present in this character or not. Also, if you look at this last parameter, that is the compare, and if we use text compare, then we could just get rid of this caps part. Okay, but sometimes we need that all the validation characters. Like I'll just show you one more example. So like if we just want to validate that if a text box has only valid number or not, you understand that a number could be positive, number could be negative, right? So in that case we have to allow those character as well. So that's why this method is interesting, that when we want to allow only a valid list like plus, it could have a comma as a 1000 separator, it could have a decimal for dot for a decimal separator, and then 0 to 9. Okay, so in that case we can just generate a valid character list and then create a constant out of those valid list. Okay, and in that way we can just check that if that specific test character is present on these all valid characters or not. If it's present, then bingo, we get that valid characters. Okay, so basically this is the three different way. Let me just explain a little bit when you need to use which one. Okay, so this one is important when you have different kind of cases, like when it's not in consecutive order 65 to 90, A to Z or J to A, or caps A to Z. Okay, so when you have in different way like minus, plus, comma, dot, 0 to 9, so you can just build up that and then you can use that. Okay, so that's one. And another cases could be like when we want to create a file, then Windows shows that we cannot use a certain type of character. So let me just bring that. If I just try to create a new file, so let me just go there. If I create a new file and let's consider text file, and if I type question mark, then it says a file name cannot contain any of the following characters, right? So if we want to create a function that check that if a string is valid file name, could be a valid file name or not, then we can just build a string with these invalid characters and we can just check that okay, if those character is present anywhere in those file name or not. Okay, that's the idea, that when you have that list that is not in a consecutive order, then this method is really useful. Okay, so that is one cases when you want to use this one. Case statement is kind of important when you have like you can understand that this like operator and case statement is kind of similar, but we can have more scenario in this way, like if I just want to allow that okay, A to Z and positive, negative and so on, in that case I could just build up that whatever the char ASCII value of negative number, okay, and so on, that kind of stuff. So it's easier when you have like a long list like A to Z and you have some valid characters or invalid character that is not inside of a range. Okay, like it's different than a range like A to Z. Okay, so when you have like some A to Z range and as well as some extra valid characters or invalid characters and so on, in that case this one is better. Okay, and this like operator is especially most useful when you have a range. So you can check in this way that if a specific character is found present in another string when it's kind of like a list of valid or invalid characters. So I mean valid, when you want to check that if a character is valid or not, then you need to search in the valid character list, and when you want to check that if a specific character is invalid, then you should check in the invalid character list. Okay, so that's it for this video. Hope you like my video. Have a good day.